So here we go. We have this problem there. The only change from what we were doing before with these is that that we have variables. Okay, so this isn't too bad. So again, I know I'm gonna have my 2x, I'm gonna have my -1, and then I have all of this 288x to the 5th y. So there are a couple things. I'm going to change things up a little bit. So I'm going to simplify my 288. So 288 divided by 2 is 144, divided by 2 is 72, divided by 2 is 36, divided by 2 is 18, divided by 2 is 9, divided by 3 is 3, divided by 3 is 1. So for my final answer, I'm going to, or not my final answer, but for when after I simplify, I have my 2x, I have my I down here. I know for my numbers, I'm going to be taking out 2 2's and a 3. I have my x to the 5th, and if you want to rewrite it over here, you don't have to write it underneath the radical. So I'm going to have 2 x's on the outside, and then I just have my y here. Okay, what's not circled over here, because this represents what's in the radical, well, I have the 2, the x, and the y, so that's what's going to go underneath here. Now I have to just simplify this. So I combine my numbers. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24. I have 1, 2, 3 x's, so I'm going to write x to the 3rd, I, radical 2x, y. Okay, next one right here, I have my -3a b cubed c squared, radical -252 a to the 4th c squared. So same thing, -3a b cubed c squared. I have my radical -1. And then I have to simplify the 252 a to the 4th c squared. So I'm going to do that over here. So I have my 252 divided by 2, which is 126. 126 divided by 2 is 63. 63 divided by 3 is 21. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. So I know right now, I bring my -3, my a, my b cubed, my c squared. This becomes an I. I know I'm going to have a 2 on the outside. I know I'm going to have a 3 on the outside. Oh, not yet. Okay. Now I look at my variables. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 a's, so I know I'm going to have 2 a's coming on the outside, and then I have 2 c's right here, so I know I'm going to have a c on the outside. What's left that's not circled, it's just going to be that lonely number 7. -3 times 2 is -6. -6 times 3 is -18. I have 1 a here and 2 a's here, so I have a total of 3 a's. I only have my 3 b's here. I have 2 c's and 1 c, so that's going to be c cubed. I have an I, and I have a radical 7. I to the 28th. So all I do is I take my exponent and divide by 2, and I have another nice 14. I'm just going to write it as -1 to the 14th power, which you can put in your calculator, but it ends up just being +1. -I to the 49th power. So I did one of these in the notes. There's a -1 there. Okay. I do the same thing though. I do 49 divided by 2, which is equal to 24.5. That 0.5 tells me that I'm going to have an I in my answer. The 24 tells me that it's going to be -1 to the 24th power, and I still have my -1 here, so I'm going to have -1. This is -1, +1, and I, which is -1I or -I. I would accept either of those answers. And I know that these are kind of tough. So now we have -I to the 51st power. That's -1 times I to the 51st power. I know I'm going to have a -1. I do 51 divided by 2, and I know that's going to be 25.5. The 0.5 tells me that there's going to be an I in my answer. And the 25 here tells me I'm going to be to the 25th power. -1 times I. A -1 to an odd power is going to be odd. And so my answer is going to be 1I or just I. I to the -506. Now this one, because that negative is in the exponent, you're just going to rewrite it in the denominator. So the 506 goes in the bottom. I still do the same thing. I take my 506 and I divide by 2. That's going to be 253. Okay, I have no remainder, so I just rewrite it. So that's going to be 1 over -1 to the 253 power, which is going to be 1 over -1, which is just simply -1. Number 7, 15I times 4I. I'm going to rewrite it. 15 times 4 times I times I. Okay, 15 times 4 is 60 I squared. I know I squared is -1, and so my answer here is simply -60. Last but not least, I have an 8I, -9I, and 6I. 8 times -9 times 6 times I times I times I. Okay, 8 times -8 times -9 times 6 is -432. My I cubed, well, that's going to be my I squared, which is going to be -1 times I, and so my answer is going to be